Do you think one mind is better than many? Neither do we. A University of Chicago Booth School of Business MBA is for curious and collaborative people who value different perspectives and ideas. Chicago Booth takes pride in empowering and being empowered by women of diverse backgrounds. We believe that fostering an inclusive community creates an environment of analytical, open minded inquiry and produces knowledge with enduring impact. Learn more today at chicagobooth.edu/elevate. Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Ellevate podcast, History Makers. I am so excited. I just finished up my interview with Ridwana Wallace-Laher, who is the first woman CEO of a major Muslim-led international charity. We talk a lot about that. We talk about, being in a male-dominated space, but we also talk about her journey from teaching into charity work, which was a long journey for her and just amazing. And we talk about, the feeling of when you change your life plan and how groundless that can make you feel. It's just such a great interview, and I cannot wait for you guys to get to it. So let's get to it now. Ridwana, the first thing I usually ask, I know it's a big question, but I usually ask, how did you get to where you are today?
Hi, Ridwana here. Okay. Oh my gosh, right. Where do I start then? So I actually started off as a secondary school teacher and taught for 13 years at secondary schools in West Yorkshire. Absolutely loved my job and my role. Really enjoy working with young people. I used to teach religion, philosophy, ethics. I've always sort of been interested in those sorts of topics. In my most recent post as a teacher, I got involved with becoming a head of year. So I had the responsibility of nearly 300 young people under me. So it was quite exciting to sort of try and keep them motivated and keep them thinking about what they could be doing, post school and things like that. And then slowly got them actually involved in doing charity work. So it was actually a couple of my students who were involved with a charity and they'd invited me to a charity event and said, "Oh, Miss, you need to come along and you need to support our charity." So I was like, "Yep, of course I will do." So I went with my family and had a really good time. And then slowly started getting more and more pupils involved in charity. So I got to know the charities sort of really well. And that's when Penny Appeal first started, and they were starting up as a fresh new charity. We're looking for people to come on board and support them. And then they got in touch with me and said, "Oh, would you be interested in working with us?" So at first I was a bit like, "No, I'm a teacher, I'm a full-time teacher, and I don't mind supporting the charity and volunteering, but it's not actually a career that I'd actually thought about." So I sort of and ahed and then volunteered with them for a good year and a half actually. Started off doing bucket shaking, organising events, recruiting volunteers, those sorts of things. And then eventually I was getting myself more and more involved with Penny Appeal. And then eventually the founder and another colleague who had helped set up the charity sort of kept pestering me again, saying, "Look, we could really do with somebody like yourself coming on board. What do you reckon?" And then I just thought, you know what? No, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to take on the role. So I joined Penny Appeal back in 2014 and came on board as a volunteer coordinator, supporting with setting up the volunteer side of stuff, recruitment, retaining, rewarding volunteers. Then slowly started working with the fundraising departments. I was always really interested in income generation, in putting on events, organising events and things like that. Then I slowly started working with high net worth individuals, and again got a real buzz from working with individuals and giving them solutions to how they could donate their funds and work with projects that were sort of they felt something for them. It was a personal thing to them, for their families and so on. And then COVID hit, and things started to come to a bit of a standstill. And then on a personal level, my father got really poorly with COVID, and Penny Peel was always a very fast-paced organisation. And I think that's the beauty of it, because it sort of suits my personality. So when COVID hit and my dad got poorly, I just needed a bit of a break, and I just felt as though I needed a bit of time away from everything. So I ended up working for a smaller charity just to sort of keep my foot in the door. So I worked with a smaller charity, took a bit of time out. Um, Unfortunately, I lost my dad to COVID, so that was quite hard for the family. And then a few months had passed, and I just felt as though I just needed that energy back in my life again. And I always kept good relations with everybody at Penny Appeal. So the founder, Dean, got back in touch with me and said, "Look, we're ready to have you back whenever you're ready." So I thought, you know what? No, I think I am ready. So I came back and joined the charity. Came in as director of donor care. So I looked after everything and anything to do with our donor relations, making sure that donors were getting the feedback that they needed and things like that. And then very quickly got promoted to director of growth. And then senior director of growth. So, growth is anything to do with income generation and helping the organization grow and sort of take it to the next level. Again, absolutely loved doing what I was doing, really enjoyed it. And we had an interim CEO at the time who was looking to move on. So the board decided to look for somebody full time. And the job advert came out for the CEO-ship, and I sort of, again, ummed and ahed a little bit and didn't know whether it was quite for me. Was I ready for it? There's a lot of competition. The Muslim charity sector is very, very male dominated. And I felt as though, would I be in the minority? Would I be able to do the role? But luckily, I had some really, really good supportive people around me who sort of pushed me and said, no, this is for you. You should go for it. If you don't put your name in the ring, you're never going to know. And I took the plunge. Had a couple of very grueling interviews, very thorough. Got shortlisted and everything, and then finally got to interview and was very successful at interview level, and got offered the job. So I was absolutely over the moon. Really happy with how things went. So I literally went from being a volunteer bucket shaker to becoming, boss in the boardroom, as they say, and loved every single minute of it. I've been in post since February, so it's been a few months. I've got a really, really good team around me, and just really, really relishing the opportunities that have been put forward for me. I've met some amazing people in the last few months. I've been invited to 10 Downing Street twice, so that was really nice. I've been part of roundtable discussions around philanthropy and things like that. I've spoken at International Women's Day events. I've been nominated for a CEO of the Year award as well, which I've got an event for this coming week. So that's exciting. And I've had like people from all walks of life sort of come forward, people who know me, people who don't know me, people who are from charity, people who are non-charity people who've sort of reached out over LinkedIn and social media and have congratulated me and, wanting to work with me. And it's just been really, really lovely to sort of see that. And I've had especially loads of young women, and just women in general coming forward saying that they're absolutely really excited. What's going to happen with Penny Appeal going forward, and just women in general in charity, and hoping that other opportunities will arise for other women as well. So that's my story in a bit of a nutshell, really. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, but it's been really, really amazing and really humbling as well.
That is incredible. And of course, my condolences for your father, but I'm sure he would be incredibly, incredibly proud.
Yeah. He just
Yeah.
was, yeah, an amazing person. And he was always, we're four sisters and a brother. I think we were all sort of daddy's girls because he always pushed us, as did my mum. So my mum's always been a real positive role model for me as well. And she was always the one pushing us to aspire to be the best that we can and everything. And my dad always as well, coming from a sort of Asian background, sometimes women are not given the same opportunities as other cultures and so on. But my mum and dad were always very, very, up for us, being educated, being confident, being the people that we wanted to be, and not holding us back for anything. So that was always really good. So yeah, I do owe a lot to my parents for pushing us, and giving us the opportunities as well, really.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to go back to, you talk about moving from teaching to charity work, which is pretty, pretty huge.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever feel like, I know that certainly there have been times when I've, changed kind of my life plan that you feel almost kind of groundless. You're like, I don't know, this is not what I always planned to do. How did you navigate changing so radically what you were doing?
Oh, it was so difficult in the first instance because especially like my mum as well, who'd always sort of pushed us to sort of become educated at the highest level that we could. And I know when I first sort of toyed with the decision, everybody around me was saying things like, "But you're a teacher and you've got all these qualifications, and you've done so well for yourself, and you've really progressed, and you're going to go work for a charity." And I was a bit like, I know, it's so weird to think. And I actually saw it as a step back without actually realizing that, the way that charities are run nowadays are phenomenal, and, there's proper governance in place and everything. And it's just like a normal job in that sense. Equally rewarding to teaching, but a massive, massive difference in the sense that, again, things like, I did have to take a massive salary drop, and everything. And these are just life choices that you sort of have to make. But the reward is just immense. And when you meet people who you have helped and supported, it just puts everything into perspective. I've had the privilege of actually visiting our beneficiaries. I've been to Gambia a number of times, I've been to Lebanon a number of times, worked with our communities here in the UK. I've literally just got back this week from a trip to India, where again, I met a lot of our beneficiaries out there who are just sort of, they're so inspiring to see these people who are literally, they have nothing, but they just want to give everything back to you. So they're very, very thankful for all the sort of opportunities that we give them, things that we take for granted, like having, a meal which is meat. To us, it's the norm. For some of these communities, the meat that we provided them with was meat that they would never have had ordinarily. And it's the simple things like that that, again, just put things into perspective, that, we're so privileged to be in a position to be able to support others, that it definitely, yeah, makes everything worthwhile.
100%. And I think that that's similar to teaching too, is getting to see the people that you've helped, you've taught, grow up.
Definitely. Oh, certainly. And this is a thing. And like, even now, when I bump into pupils, they still call me Miss, and they're all grown up and they have families of their own and so on. And it's just amazing to see that you've had an impact in their life. And, pupils come back and say things like, "Oh, Miss, we loved your lessons and we really enjoyed it. And sorry for being a pain, but, I can sympathize with you now," and things like that. And it's just really, really good to see. So similarly, yeah, when we meet our beneficiaries, it's a case of them just being really thankful for what we can do for them.
Absolutely. And I love that they still call you Miss, because I remember I still call all my teachers by Miss or Mister, whatever their name was. And I remember my choir director in high school, when we graduated, I guess he says this to all of the people once they graduate. He goes, "Well, I don't have to be Mr. DeCrow anymore. I'm just Steve." And we all just kind of looked at him and said, "Yeah, we're not calling you that."
Yeah, it's just it is just a weird thing where pupils just don't use your first name. And even now, sometimes if I'm with my children and we're out and about, and then suddenly this grown man or grown woman will come up and go, "Oh, hiya, Miss," and my children will just look at them and go, "Why are they calling you Miss still?" Like, I know, it's just one of those things that I think is just sort of ingrained in you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to, you mentioned that the Muslim charity sector is very male dominated, as evidenced by you being, on this podcast as being a history maker. Do you want to talk about what it felt like being kind of the only woman in the room sometimes when it comes to leading charities?
Oh, very much so. Even before I became CEO, and obviously I held a senior position, and every single meeting, pretty much every single meeting I went to, I was always in the minority. And on the odd occasion, there'd be another female. On the odd occasion, there'd be another Muslim female. And it just got to a point where I really did actually think to myself, how will I cope, like when I become CEO, like being again in that minority? But then I think that's what spurred me to do it, to think there are so many talented women out there within the charity space that unfortunately just haven't been given those opportunities. And I think again, that's one of the things that I love about Penny Appeal, that regardless of anything, they gave me the role because they knew that I outshone the other candidates. And it did sort of make me think that I'm wondering whether there have been, other women who have applied for roles and then not got them just because charities feel as though it's a bit of a man's world. And that can be really, really difficult because you are just so obviously underrepresented in these circles. And I think sometimes, obviously, women just have a different way of looking at things sometimes. And like I said, there's so many talented women out there that hopefully this will give them, the sort of little push as well to think to themselves that they could also apply for senior roles, as well in some of the charity spaces that we're in.
And I think we absolutely need more representation. We just need more voices in these spaces.
Oh, definitely. And this is the thing, look, for so long, I always, again, and I think, I don't know where it came from, but I always had this image as well of charities being, grumpy old men sat around making decisions and things like that. And charity has changed so much. And we're finding that a lot more of our donors are getting more involved in the charity side of things, wanting to know exactly where their donations are going, wanting to go visit the field and visit the projects. And that's absolutely brilliant. And like I said, we have women who are fundraising for us, who are running marathons, who are doing hikes, who are visiting the field. We had a team that went out to Turkey when the Turkey earthquake happened, and fundraised for us. We've had women who have, got to Everest because of Penny Appeal, and they're really stepping up in that sense as well, and showing that charity doesn't have to be boring either. There's so many ways of making it fun and exciting, and then doing something really rewarding at the same time as well, which is also really, really good. And a lot of what we do, our fundraising campaigns are quite often centered around putting together events for communities. And again, our events give some of the minority communities an opportunity, within the arts and culture space, just to shine. So, like, we do something called the Big Muslim Variety Show, where again we've got a mixture of men and women performers, and it's absolutely brilliant to see females again come forward in the arts and shine in whatever it is that's their speciality. We were the first to do a Muslim panto, which was absolutely amazing. And again, we had women performing, and really stepping up and showing that that they can be just as good as the men as well. So yeah, it's a very, very forward thinking charity, and obviously the appointment of myself, I think, is testament to that as well.
So one thing I want to ask, sometimes I ask things because like I'm just curious and thus I know that people at home are curious too. What was Downing Street like?
Oh, brilliant. I was like so amazed by it. So you sort of go into this, when you go onto it from the main road, and it looks like it's this small little house, and then you walk in and you've got quite a grand, like foyer area, and everything. But you're not allowed to take any pictures once you're inside, so you have to leave your phones to one side. But I saw the infamous corridor with all the previous prime ministers and their pictures on the wall. So that was really, really nice. And I got invited to a roundtable discussion on philanthropy. And it literally was the grandest of rooms that you could ever imagine. And it was a really nice wooden table, and there were a number of us from different areas of charity and business talking about, things that we all sort of have in common. And it was really nice, and it was weird in a weird way. It was actually like a working office as well. So you just saw people sort of walking around, and that's their workplace and stuff. But it was really, really nice. And then I had the privilege of going for a second time, and they had an Eid celebration. So we had a bit of a running joke in the family, that I'll be getting my own key next because I've been that many times to Downing Street. So it was quite funny.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned how small it seems, because it does. When you see it
I
from afar,
know.
you're like, it looks like just a small house.
Yeah, exactly. And you sort of go in, and it's like there's so many different corridors and so many different floors. And then you sort of look down one corridor, and there's loads of rooms. And then the rooms themselves are like really big and grand. And it's just like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, it is very, very nice.
Totally. Well, we are nearing the end here, so I want to ask, we're all standing on the shoulders of others who've made history before us. So I always ask, who's a history maker or history makers who inspired you?
Uh, I've actually got two, if that's okay. So I've got a male and a
Totally fine.
female, actually. Yeah, so I've got the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I think being a Muslim as well, and just his very nature of his character, which was very humble, very straightforward, very sort of for the people. And I think that really resonates with me that, we can lead simple life, and we can achieve great things just by being, one of the things I used to teach at the kids as well is just morally being good people, regardless of what religion or background you come from. To smile at somebody is going to cost you nothing. To be nice to somebody is going to cost you nothing. And if we all do those basic things, we will get so far in life. And I think similar characters was Mother Teresa, who again obviously was a selfless individual who gave up her entire life in supporting people. And I can only do like a minute version of what she achieved in her life. But again, it's just that simplicity of being selfless and supporting people, and really championing the underdog as well of minorities and communities that people often forget about. Both individuals I've mentioned never did anything for show. They never did it to show off. They never did it for the fame. They did it because they just felt and knew that it was the right thing to do. And I'm hoping that that's the sort of character and person that I can be as well, and really look up to people like that as well.
Absolutely beautiful. And I love that you mentioned two people who are such different faiths, but doing such important things together, and being just a good person, like you said when you were teaching your students.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's come from, like, again, my parents always said to us, regardless of, obviously, we were brought up as Muslims, but regardless of that, just be good people, just have good morals, good manners, and you'll get really far in life. And, if you unpick religions, ultimately, that's what they all teach anyway. And it's just those basic things in life, like I mentioned about just smiling at somebody, being nice to somebody, being friendly to somebody, doesn't cost you anything, and it could make such a difference to somebody's life. So I think that's really, really important.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I really loved this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate's support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Katherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.